Hello, everybody, and welcome to Microsoft Mechanics Live. Coming up, we're going to take a look at recent updates and announcements from Microsoft FastTrack with new tools for deployment and adoption to help plan, implement, and adopt Microsoft 365 services. We're going to explain a couple of new things: the new FastTrack for Microsoft 365 services, a unified experience across Office 365, Windows 10, and enterprise mobility, plus security, offering you deployment and user adoption help, spanning collaboration, security, and voice. Joined today by Cyril Belikoff from the FastTrack team. Welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Great audience.
Give them a warm round of applause.
Thank you. And to all of you, thanks for being at Ignite.
So Microsoft FastTrack, it's been a big deal for us, is really the evolution of how we can help organizations move to the Microsoft Cloud and all the different services with confidence and really maximize the benefits that you get from it. For some of the folks who haven't maybe started using Microsoft FastTrack or heard about it, can you explain what it is and what it's about?
Yeah, for sure. It's been a busy week for FastTrack, particularly FastTrack for Microsoft 365. But before we jump into the details, a little bit about it. You know, FastTrack is been taking on about 4,000 new organizations every month. We've onboarded about 40,000 customers into Office 365 and Microsoft 365. So things have taken off in that way. There's 800 plus Microsoft engineers that actually run this FastTrack service across the world in 12 locations and languages. So, you know, they take all the lessons from how they help all these customers and they package them up to help everybody save time, be able to move to the cloud, as you say, with confidence.
That's one of the great things with FastTrack, because if you think about if they're really helping out 4,000 customers a month, think about maybe some of you have done Azure Active Directory migration or synchronization starting from an on-prem AD where you've got .local addresses or symbols in front of the @ signs. Those types of things, they've been going through things like ID Fix and those tools and really getting directories prepared for these 4,000 plus engagements per month. So those are the guys that you're going to want to talk with in order to get help if you're going to do that operation.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, there are a set of 3 different types of things you'll see today and that FastTrack will continue to deliver. The first is, you know, there's a bunch of self-serve tools and resources that you'll see in the digital web experience. There's FastTrack Assistance itself from the engineers, and then we have some in-product activities in the actual product in the admin console and for the users as well.
All right, well, let's show them what's new.
Great. You know, we announced FastTrack for Microsoft 365, which is great. And it was really, back in July, we announced Microsoft 365, and so it was appropriate for us to go and do that. And Jeremy is bringing up the web page you can see here. Why don't we start with the devices piece? It's really broken up into the capabilities: devices, collab, voice, and security. You know, on the devices side, what we've done with FastTrack for Microsoft 365 is really bring together all the different deployment resources and tools into one place to help you envision, onboard, and then drive adoption with your users. And you know, previously we'd probably send you around the internet to find all these things and then give you a different place to really get that assistance. So we've done that. We've also made some announcements this week, which are pretty exciting. The first is we announced some Windows Analytics compliance and device health tools. And they're really great because they provide insights and allow customers to look at what's going on as they migrate to, you know, Windows 10 and then take the semi-annual updates.
And if you haven't started using the Windows Analytics toolset, there's basically 3 different components. And you can see on my screen here within OMS, there's the device health, which is in preview. And it's basically got the ability to look for different device crashes and diagnose those. We've also got things like update compliance, which basically looks at your monthly patch state and whether or not you've got systems that are out of compliance. And then finally, I think one of the more pivotal ones is upgrade readiness, which basically says if you're moving, say, from Windows 7 and Office 2010, here's the ways that you can basically get through some of the compatibility or driver or various issues that you might have or that we detect. We're using the same telemetry systems that the Windows team uses when they're actually deploying new Windows builds out to customers. So all of these things we can do with upgrade readiness, that it's basically scoped to the people that are in your environment. So very cool stuff in terms of, and this is stuff that Brad and other people have shown this week.
Yep. The other thing we also announced in the same space was on the Office side, you say, hey, great, I'm upgrading on Windows, but what about Office? And so we announced a new readiness toolkit that does application compatibility as you're upgrading to the new Office 365 Pro Plus. So you can look at the VBA add-ins and all those other things that you have in Office so that you can be ready as you upgrade. So really making sure that you have the Windows pieces and the Office pieces all together in one place.
And we've also done a lot of work in the collaboration side, because FastTrack's roots were really with Office 365, right?
Right. Yeah, it's great. You know, we've been at this for quite some time, and I think the number is around 6.3 petabytes of data that we've migrated in terms of files and documents to OneDrive or to SharePoint. And with all of that work that we did, we partnered with the SharePoint engineering team, and we this week announced the SharePoint migration tool so that you can be able to migrate from file shares and SharePoint 2013 over across to SharePoint Online and OneDrive with this tool. So the FastTrack team themselves use this tool in the migration as they assist you, but of course you can go grab the tool on the website and go see what it looks like. Your partner can do the same, and really go and do as you see and test it out and see how it works.
Right, and literally today we just released a video, Microsoft Mechanics, with Bill Baer, who showed how the SharePoint migration tool works. But let me just give you a quick demo of what it actually does. So once I'm in SharePoint and I've basically got an on-prem file share, for example, I go ahead and I can type for users that I might want to migrate their on-prem folder from. I can do a CSV file or do one account at a time. Once I do that, it's going to ask me, okay, now that I've authenticated in and I've got the right credentials in order to go, do I want to use SharePoint on premises? So I can do a 2013 SharePoint migration from doc libraries or my sites. I can use a file share, and I can basically browse and go to the file share directory here. It's already been linked into the file system, and I can enter my URL in terms of where I want that that folder content to go. And here I can see exactly where it's going in the SharePoint OneDrive location. We'll go ahead and move the documents move it to the documents directory. And then when we click migrate, what it's going to do is basically take all the contents from the on-premises file share, move that into OneDrive for Business, and then I can use all the benefits and all the things in terms of sharing my files internally or externally with all the controls that I'd have for OneDrive for Business. Of course, if I want to use something like a CSV file or do many of these at once, we support that as well, and we can move terabytes of data because it's been tested. And this is part of the robustness that we work with the FastTrack team on to make sure that we can move maybe 1,000 or 10,000 users at a time with this tool.
Yeah, as you mentioned earlier, the real benefit is that the FastTrack team's working with all of you, but at the same time they partner deeply with each of the individual engineering teams and really working out to get the right scale, and in this case, the migration of really large data sets into the cloud as fast as we can. So that's great for onboarding and migration, but what about a little bit of an adoption? And we have made an announcement of a new, what we call productivity library this week. Sorry, before we get to productivity library.
Let's talk about voice, because there's been a lot of voice announcements this week, so it's
voice
super
is it'll be remiss to miss out on the voice, so we'll get to adoption in a second. You probably heard all the announcement of Teams and Skype, and what we did with FastTrack is that we integrated the Skype operations guidance into FastTrack. And so we added a new capability there as well called the My Advisor for Cloud Voice, which really helps customers think about how do they operationalize cloud voice on a daily basis. And Jeremy, you got a few things to show here.
Right, so just to show the first screen here, we'll spend a couple seconds in here, but you can see all of the different steps that you would take in terms of program, the personnel, organization, deployment, all the features that you need to know about in terms of moving to Cloud Voice, and then being able to get all those step by step in one place. It's a little bit long to click through every single thing, and I want to get through as many demos as I can.
Yep.
So let's move on in terms of talking about some new things around the productivity library, because this is one of those things where you and me as IT pros, and I've been there, you can deploy things, but it's not like if you build it, they will come. You've got to actually go out and tell people that there's new capabilities, new features, new things to do, and incent them. Why is it going to give them any benefit? And what's the rationale, and how do you use the tools that we're going to give them? That's why we built the productivity library, right?
Yeah, that's great. You know, the end users need understanding of what's possible in the new world with Microsoft 365. Many of them are moving from Windows 7 and Office 2010 and have never really had the opportunity to see what's possible. And that's really what the productivity library is for. They're simple use cases to discover what's possible with Microsoft 365. There are ways to get going really quickly so that it's not a really complicated solution. It's really simple, and it's got really rich video embedded with how-to material. So you can see here it's divided up in different functions. So if you've got a finance team or a sales team or HR team, and then different cards are available, and you can see each of these cards that Germany's scrolling down to, it's by scenario, so you can see one of them, tap into your sales potential through RFPs or whatever it might be, and really it takes you through the really simple, out-of-the-box scenarios that a salesperson can do with Microsoft 365 to get going quickly. Gives them a quick video and then some training from here. And this particular one is we actually captured one of these sales professionals, and this is one of our, what we call one of our champions, and she takes us through her day and how she uses Microsoft 365. So you can use that with your users too, or your business stakeholders as they try and envision what's possible with Microsoft 365.
Right, and a lot of this boils down to training. So we've done some additional work in terms of making all of the training content that we have on Office.com better, in terms of evolving from some of the other experiences that we had, say in support pages, for example, on Office.com/training, just to show. Actually, a couple other things we want to show. One thing we want to show before that, in product help, which is even another thing that we can do. So in product help, actually in the span of actually working with, say, Excel, like I'm showing here, you can get guidance for how to do things like, in this case, create and format tables, and that's all being brought in from LinkedIn Learning. So really great use of that learning asset as well, brought straight into Excel here in this case. So as I'm actually using the product and I'm searching within help, if I'm using, say, the Tell Me box at the top, that will then expose me some great help content with some great embedded videos. So much better than the old help files that we had that were purely text that didn't give you kind of that video training and all of the direct links into the content like we can do now.
Yeah, it's a good example of what I mentioned earlier, where we take all the lessons we had, we created that training material, made it available on the public web, in the productivity library, for example, and other training places. But here we wanted to embed it inside the product. So as the user is moving through their day and moving through whatever they might be doing, they get stuck, or we might see, based on telemetry, the types of things they do and how they can be more efficient. We can serve them up really specific training and materials that is rich and it really takes them through and makes them more productive.
All right, so now let's close out training, because the thing that we can do as well, hold on, let me go back to Office. Oh, I had it in there. Let me go back to Office.com. Actually, we'll have to skip that one, I think.
Yeah, why don't we just talk about it quickly?
We'll talk about it quickly. So,
yeah, so in addition to the productivity library and in the product, we announced this week Office.com Training Center. And in that training center, it's the traditional training that you've seen on Office.com, but we've added a ton of new materials, really targeted at Office 365. Why? Because it's a service and it gets updated frequently. So when someone goes into the browser, they might get a new feature that particular quarter. They go into SharePoint or into OneDrive or into Office 365 Pro Plus. And so we created 130 new training videos, cheat sheets, new tip cards, infographics, really things that for users to understand what they can do and how they can get going quickly, and then for you to use yourselves with them so that you can take it inside your organizations and drive an element of training as you roll out these services.
And here, actually, I got the page because it's such an easy URL to remember. It's just office.com/training. So we've got that open, and you can see there's some really great stuff. One of the best things to try out, actually, if you're on a newer build of Office, is this Hubble example, which is basically Morph 3D that shows the different rotations of that satellite over the Earth, and it's just a beautiful set of capabilities as well as the visuals in that one template there. So lots of great training content. But one thing that I'm passionate about, because I come from an IT background, I want to show you something new that we've been working on, which is basically a way to create IT plans around Microsoft 365 that we're calling the IT roadmap. So here you can actually get to the tool through a couple of sites. One, transform.microsoft.com, which is kind of a partner logged in version of the tool, which I'm showing here. And you can also log in via transform.microsoft.com/IT roadmap. So just the premise of this is there's 4 different levels of optimization that you can have in any given task. And we're just going to click on provisioning real quick, because now we're talking about devices, and I come from a Windows imaging background. So when you think about level 1, if we look at the right or the left-hand side here, this goes from basic imaging to more automation in imaging, and then when I get to level 3, This is doing in-place upgrades for when I've got an in-place migration that I'm doing, where I'm keeping the same PC and computer, PC to PC machine replacement scenarios are automated. Then we get into things like level 4, where it's Windows Autopilot and the services that you may have seen this week, along with automation of user data and all of those things as part of any machine replacement. Plus, level 4, using things like OneDrive for Business, for example, so you can store that data in the cloud. So let's say I'm ready to actually assess where I want to go. So right now I'm using a highly automated task sequence-based deployment, but I really want to get to Windows Autopilot. And what that will actually do is it will give me a set of recommendations that I can see exactly what I need to do in terms of maybe different configuration manager settings and features I need to enable. I can see the user impact and the implementation effort, and I can see whether or not FastTrack will actually help me get some of these capabilities in place. Now, I've just done one quick assessment here, but just to show you what that looks like once I assess, you can see here across the levels, if I would have done all 3 of these different services, I would have scores across all of them. Then it will actually generate for me a customized IT roadmap that will say, okay, here are all the services that you assessed, here are the things that you're doing now, and here are the different services that you want to have in place. Based on that, we know that there are this set of things to do. It might be, if you're only picking one service, 10 or 15 things. It might be 40 things if you've picked 3 different services to assess. But all of those things we'll see, and we'll actually see not only how the model works, but we can see where FastTrack can help us in terms of how to get to these new capabilities. So here we can see a nice description of the model, all tailored to my organization. I get to see even business translation and views into how all of these different capabilities are going to work once I go into some of the higher levels. And then it'll give me a nice action plan then when I get to the bottom in terms of provisioning and all the different tools that I've assessed and the things that I want to do with all the different actions I need to take, as well as the FastTrack mappings on the far right. So everything there, again, customized to my organization and things I want to do. So this is something that you can use now to actually start working, and you can work with your FastTrack engineers to say, hey, I know I want to implement all of these different things. I know I got to do, say, Azure Active Directory, pass-through authentication, and Microsoft Intune. All of these things, then FastTrack can work with you on in order to get those deployed.
Yeah, the really powerful thing about this tool is that you'll obviously spend time identifying what are the scenarios you want to go and implement, and then based on that, you use this IT roadmap tool that really helps you identify specifically at the technology level what levels of maturity you're going to need in order to implement that. And then you can literally take this document, pick up the phone, or request assistance in the FastTrack digital experience from FastTrack themselves, and that's a great opportunity for FastTrack to then say, okay, you want to activate Azure Active Directory, you need to do something on Exchange, you need to do something on SharePoint, and they basically help you onboard with a very specific roadmap that's tied to your business scenarios and what you're trying to do. So a very good tool that Jeremy is actually working directly with the FastTrack engineering team to have them embed inside their process too, which will mean they'll be using this alongside yourself, so it'll be a very natural conversation with them. But Jeremy, talking about working with FastTrack, FastTrack, as you know, has been taking and working with all of you and many other customers and working through a set of processes and best practices on how to enable you. And what they've done is actually taken those processes and added that to the admin console in the form of setup guides. And those setup guides essentially is what FastTrack uses themselves. They're automated steps where decisions have to be made at particular points that then go and essentially do different things for you. And Jeremy's pulling up a few. One example is the setup guide for Pro Plus or SharePoint or Exchange, whatever that may be. And you can go and do them at your own pace. Your partner can use them. Or, of course, you can use them alongside engaging with FastTrack as well.
And the nice thing here is they're not just guidance guides. They actually have controls, radio buttons, the things that you're doing in them, videos, as you can see here, even when you're getting started with Office, and it will enumerate all the different steps. And as you continue to work through these setup guides, it's going to help you then. In this case, it's the Pro Plus one, but it's going to help you get this workload deployed. So,
yeah, it actually pulls together all the discrete toggles that you might have to flick across, whether it's an Exchange thing or a Pro Plus thing or something in EMS, and it really puts it in one place so that you can work through this in a single integrated way.
Yeah, so we'll show one more of these, the Teams setup guide as well that we can do, because Teams has been big news this week. Mm-hmm. So that was Pro Plus deployment, something near and dear to my heart. I spent many years working on Pro Plus.
Yes, we
but
did.
also, if we think about Teams, all these different steps that you do, and it will enumerate all the different steps to take. It's going to even get you to the point where you can create your own team for the IT department, for example, to start working in it so you know exactly how the product works. But again, these aren't just like best practice guidance things that are purely text. These are things that you're actually clicking through and configuring in your tenant as wizards when you're going through that. So very, very cool tech to really help you get started quickly. Now beyond that though, there's even direct integration in the portal. If I click on this Need Help button here, that actually opens up a flex pane to the right-hand side. And guess who, when I actually open up a chat with, who's that going to?
It's going direct to FastTrack. So you can speak to a FastTrack manager and eventually FastTrack engineers to help you with wherever you are in the process of migrating to Microsoft 365.
So another thing, once you've got Microsoft 365 deployed, you start using various services, you want to be able to track then what people are using. So FastTrack can help there as well, right?
Yeah, so we have a digital experience within the admin console that provides usage reports for you for your different workloads within Office 365, whether it's Yammer, Exchange, Teams, and really you can see what's going on, what users are doing what with it, and then decide what actions you want to take to have it be used more prolifically throughout your organization, and more value can be derived by different parts of the team.
So here we can track, we can see all the Teams usage. This is obviously a very large tenant. I think it's our tenant. In terms of all the Teams usage, the Skype for Business usage, Yammer, the Office activations, all of that's here. One of the cool things too is I can click into Power BI, and once I've done that, I can actually get even more richness in terms of the data that's there. One of the cool things to track, actually, when you're doing, say, a push for collaboration, the best report is this one, which basically says OneDrive accounts and SharePoint accounts, are they being used by the user exclusively, or are they being used by others? So for example, if I share a link to Cyril, he's going to then start opening the document and collaborating against, say, that Word doc or that Excel file. It will actually show up here, in this case, as the lighter green bar. That way I can see as those bars start to rise, I can see more and more adoption. So here we're on an upward trend, it looks like, through September, probably prepping for Ignite. But we've got a great story in terms of being able to track all of that, and we can see then over time. We can even do things like, these are all Power BI, so it's all active data that we can query against. We can actually go by region if we want to, and get a lot of really rich data within all these models. So everything here at your fingertips. You just have to basically enable it in your tenant. We did a whole show on this actually with Ann Michaels a few months back, and this is something that everybody should be using if you don't already have it enabled.
Yeah, for sure. It's a great way to really sum it up. Everything from envisioning what's possible with things like Productivity Library, to onboarding and all the new migration tools we spoke about, and then driving adoption with the training materials we mentioned, and then monitoring the usage and seeing what you can do from there.
So lots of resources then to really help you quickly get Microsoft 365 up and running. Where would you suggest, though, people go to get started and really start engaging with FastTrack?
Yeah, there's the two primary websites, the FastTrack website, fasttrack.microsoft.com, and then Productivity Library, aka.ms, WAC Productivity Library. Those are the two primary URLs. Get there, get engaged, get a FastTrack manager, and start migrating to the cloud.
So thanks for joining us today, Cyril. Of course, you can follow us for all the updates on Microsoft Mechanics each and every week. That's all the time we have for this show. Goodbye for now.
Thank you.